Texas House Democrats who are breaking quorum, and if the latest news will impact their decisions moving forward.
And I'm Celestia Sherman. We'll also dive into today's top stories, including the co-owner of a local Donald Trump-themed restaurant facing possible deportation.
We'll also speak with the HISD reporter for the Houston Chronicle, who will discuss the changes that lie ahead for the district in this upcoming school year.
And as Ernie and I discuss the top headlines of the day, we want your thoughts, your questions, and concerns. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. National Guard troops are being deployed on the streets of the nation's capital, a day after President Trump's announcement alarmed many residents and set off protests. NPR's Brian Mann reports on the widespread skepticism to Trump's explanation that he is concerned about crime in D.C.
During a White House press conference, Trump laid out an aggressive plan for how National Guard and Metropolitan D.C. police under federal authority will attack crime. Trump also says people without housing will be forced out of Washington. J.U. King, a student at Howard University, says he doesn't think tough police tactics will solve complex social problems.
Every city has their crime, their gangs, their homelessness, but I don't feel like the displacement of those things are going to cause the solution. I think it's going to cause more damage.
Federal data shows crime was already dropping here before these federal measures. Trump's control of Metropolitan D.C. police is expected to last at least 30 days. Brian Mann, NPR News, Washington.
A trial is underway in Los Angeles over President Trump's deployment earlier this summer of National Guard troops to respond to immigration protests. Governor Gavin Newsom is suing the administration on the grounds that the deployment amounted to an illegal power grab. The president has extended the temporary truce in his trade war with China. NPR's Tamara Keith reports Trump signed an executive order pushing the deadline out another 90 days.
Earlier this year, a series of retaliatory tariff announcements pushed U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods up to 145%. Talks de-escalated tensions and brought the tariffs on U.S. imports from China to 30%. Trump said those talks are continuing.
We've been dealing very nicely with China, as you probably have heard. They have tremendous tariffs that they're paying to the United States of America. And we'll see what happens. They've been dealing quite nicely. The relationship is very good with President Xi and myself.
The White House says this extension is necessary to facilitate the ongoing discussions with China aimed at resolving trade imbalances and unfair practices. Tamara Keith, NPR News.
Consumer prices increased 2.7% in July from a year ago, the same as the 2.7% annual increase seen in June. Inflation is a little higher than it was from March to May. Economists have warned that President Trump's tariffs will increasingly start to affect prices that people in the U.S. pay as companies start to pass on more of the tariff costs. Despite concerns about inflation, the Federal Reserve is widely expected to cut interest rates when it gathers for its next policy meeting in September after a sharp slowdown in the jobs market. The Dow is up 440 points at last check. You're listening to NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. The quorum break in the Texas House of Representatives remains in effect. House Speaker Dustin Burrows was not able to conduct business when he gavelled the members in this morning. He says he's going to give it one more try on Friday.
If we still do not have quorum on Friday, the House and the Senate will sine die this session, and the governor will immediately issue a proclamation for a second called special session.
Governor Abbott issued a press release saying he will immediately call another special session with the same agenda. He's previously said he will continue to call special sessions until redrawn congressional maps are passed. A new law requiring the display of the Ten Commandments in all Texas public school classrooms is set to take effect September 1st, just weeks into the new HISD school year. News 88.7 government reporter Andrew Schneider says a court hearing on Friday could lead to the law being blocked pending the outcome of a lawsuit.
A coalition of civil liberties organizations is seeking an injunction against the law at a federal court hearing in San Antonio. Chloe Kempf, an attorney with the ACLU of Texas, says they're hoping to block the law before it can take effect on September 1st.
Because we know that even days or weeks of being exposed to this state-sponsored religious indoctrination can cause real harm to our clients and students like them.
The coalition is suing on behalf of 16 Texas families of different religious and non-religious backgrounds. They're arguing that the law violates First Amendment protections against government-established religion. Federal courts have previously blocked similar laws from taking effect in Louisiana and Arkansas. I'm Andrew Schneider, News 88.7.
Carnival Cruise Line has canceled 5 trips out of Galveston in 2027. The company is offering passengers set to board the Carnival Breeze refunds for trips that were scheduled to set sail in January and March a year and a half from now. The company says this is to accommodate planned maintenance. Thousands of travelers are projected to be impacted. Earlier this year, the company announced it would be canceling some 2026 cruises as well. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's best interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. This is NPR.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
2 out of 3 ain't bad. Yeah, Frank is out and he is doing just fine. He is actually across the pond.
He's on vacation, but we are to say no more. Or can we? He's probably posting.
I asked.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So we can say
He was like, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Frank is on vacation and he's doing great. So for those that were wondering, we miss him, but he will be back and ready to go and refreshed.
And we're doing okay, too.
We're doing all right. You know, today, first day of school of the 2025-2026 school year for HISD students.
People may know this. I'm sure they do because you're on the show every day talking about it. You're a parent. So how was the first day of school for you?
It went really well. You know, I've said this before. We have my daughter goes to a great neighborhood elementary school. It is an HISD public school and just a sweet little community. And everybody was ready to go. And of course, you have a little bit of everything. Some parents that shed a little tear as they're saying goodbye to their kindergartner. And this year we didn't have any tears. So no tears on any sides.
The story my mom tells is when I went to kindergarten for the very first school, kindergarten, you know where kindergarten falls.
Yes.
And all the parents were out in the hall and everything, and they were crying and everything. She took me into the classroom and came back out. And about 2 minutes later, I came out and I dug her. I said, "You can go home now." And she said she cried so much.
Not surprised at all. You are a social butterfly.
I was ready to move on.
But there are some kids that are more sensitive than others. And this is the first year my daughter did not cry. She went into 4th grade. Last year we had lots of tears and a little anxiety.
So she's excited or nervous?
A little nervous. Yeah. She doesn't have a ton of friends in her class this year, her classroom. So she'll still get to see them at lunch and recess. But any parent knows those jitters right before going in. But it was great. And we are thinking about all those parents who dropped off their kiddos and teachers and administrators that are back in the classroom.
We're thinking about it so much that we filled almost a whole show about it today.
Yes.
We're going to be talking with the Chronicle reporter who reports on Houston ISD about what's going on there. We're going to be speaking with a group of concerned citizens called Community Voices for Public Education, their thoughts and concerns for the upcoming school year, and something really practical, school children nutrition, lunches. whether you're packing them or eating them at school, what are our children eating and what should they be eating?
The bane of my existence. Snacks and healthy snacks and information. And also on Monday, we will have Superintendent Mike Miles in studio to talk and answer y'all's questions as we get that first week of school out of the way.
Another important element of what's going on in the world around us is what's happening in the Texas Legislature. And on the show today, we're going to hear from both sides of the aisle. So we'll be hearing from a Texas State Representative Democrat and the Texas State Representative Republican in the second hour. So keep listening for that. Phone lines are open all through the show today, 713-440-8870. You can also text us. Or remember, watch us on YouTube. Just look for the Houston Public Media channel. And there's always a chat going on in the comments section there, too. And we're monitoring those, so we'll get your questions to our guests as we go through that. So all of that said, are you ready to take us into the news? Are you rested and ready to attack it again?
I don't know. This morning was quite the morning, but yes, I am ready. Let's get going. As we just heard on the newscast, and as Ernie mentioned, Texas House Democrats again broke quorum today with a total of 95 members present, 2 fewer than Monday's session. House Speaker Dustin Burrows made the announcement from the dais that if the House still does not have quorum by Friday, the legislature concludes the session and the governor will call another special session of legislature. Governor Greg Abbott is being very clear on his plan. He announced shortly after that if the legislature does conclude on Friday, he is prepared to call another special session immediately. Just minutes ago, the governor sent out a press release stating the second special session will have the exact same 18-item agenda as the current session we are in. That includes redistricting and flood response. Tuesday marks the 9th day of the quorum break.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to discuss and unpack.
We are waiting for one of our guests to join us. And as we do that, some interesting facts to keep in mind as this conversation continues on. The Independent Voter Project looked at the state of Texas, and they came up with, and we don't, in the state, we don't keep track of these numbers the way you would in other places. So that's why an independent firm has come in to kind of estimate this out. But they estimate that we have 46.5% registered Democrats in the state of Texas and only 37.75% Republicans in the state of Texas, which is interesting. So it's a heavier slant towards Democrat in registering. But when it comes to voting, as we look at maybe the last presidential election, 56% of the people voted for Trump, 42% for Harris, to give you an idea where passions lie. Keep those numbers in mind as we work through when we're looking at the maps and the redistricting and representation we have and where it's fair and where it doesn't seem fair when we look at people's affiliations.
And that is so interesting, Ernie, that you bring up those numbers, because when you put those percentages in, you really get a better picture of how Texans are voting. So often I think we hear about, things were landslides or, Texans are just Republicans. And so it's very interesting to hear those numbers. I appreciate you bringing that up. Joining us now is one of the Democrats who left the state, Texas House Representative Ann Johnson. She represents Texas House District 134, which includes Bellaire and West University Place, to name a few. If you have a comment or question for Representative Johnson, you can call 713-440-8870. Representative Johnson, welcome to Hello Houston. Thank you for joining us.
Great to see y'all. Thank you for having me on.
So the governor is being clear. He is prepared to call a second session with the same 18 agenda items. He's also warned that he'll continue to call special sessions until you and the other Texas Democratic legislatures return. How does this affect your strategy of being away?
And this is breaking news. The governor has just put out a release saying that he is going to end this special session early. As Democrats, we're very proud of that because we recognize that our goal here was to defeat this particular special session because it was clear the priority for Republicans was simply doing this mid-decade redistricting, which is not normal, and attempting to steal 5 seats before the next election cycle because they are afraid of the voters. And so we now get to reset the board, and the governor gets to decide what's important to him. The House gets to decide what's important to them. Please don't forget, we were in Austin for 2 weeks. I was there on the flood committee. We had numerous other issues that we needed to debate and talk about, but the Texas House only put one bill forward, and that was redistricting. They only put one bill on the floor, and that was redistricting. They only used one bill to put a call on us to arrest to bring us back, and that was redistricting. So the people of Texas are going to get to find out, do they really want us to come back to work on the issues you care about? Or are they, again, just trying to get us to come back to talk about redistricting?
I guess where I go from here is, so this one session, now they're going to end it on Friday, this current special session. We don't know if he's immediately going to call it back in, at least at this point. I don't know immediately on Friday or if wait till Monday, how they're going to play that out. But I'm curious how that changes ultimately anything for what you folks are doing, because if he's already said it's the same agenda items, it's the sequel, but it's exactly the same as the first one. How does that change what you're doing or your plan? Yes, you achieved hopefully what your goal was in the first session, but now what do you do?
I mean, it does change it, because just as we saw in the last special session, what does the House want to talk about? Are they calling us for committee hearings and bills about stealing 5 seats, or are they calling us in for bills about doing flood mitigation and relief? And so we're going to get to find out.
Do you have
when we go back.
Do you have anything implying that it wouldn't be exactly the same? Is there any word that you have from maybe fellow elected officials on the other side of the aisle that are saying, we do see flooding as the priority, we're going to push the maps back, or is it the same information?
That's why I say we're going to find out. The governor has not put this next call out. We have not seen the agenda of the House of which committees are meeting. What topics are we talking about? And that's where everybody gets to play a role in this next setting. The next special will be determined by the leadership. Are you calling us back to do flooding? Are they going to put the flood relief bills back in the hearing to vote on that and try to see if that's going to come to the floor? Or are they, again, just going to do redistricting? And so it's many folks that now get to decide what role in leadership they want to play as to what issues will come about. And so if they do Sunny Die on Friday, that then starts the clock for a next one if they decide to call it. Once that session gets going, again, all the same processes and procedures start up where you find out what's actually getting a hearing, what bills are actually being asked to vote on. And so we're going to find out, but it's, again, going to come in the days ahead of what leadership decides they care about.
Representative Johnson, would you say this is a win for Texas Democratic legislators, or would you say that it's still too soon to tell?
I think it's a win for people that care about fair elections. I mean, this is not about Texas, and this is not about party. I mean, this really is an extraordinary step where mid-decade Republicans are trying to steal 5 seats to determine the outcome of the next election before anybody gets to go vote, Republican, Independent, Democrat. They have said it. They want to disenfranchise certain voters. They want to change districts. They want to eliminate the congressional members that you voted for and have them replaced with people that they choose. There is nothing more anti-American than that. And so the win right now is the fact that the entire nation has risen up in this week, recognized what's happening in Texas, states that have spoken up, individuals that have spoken up, Republicans that have texted me to say, thank you so much for taking this stand. And so that right now is the win. I truly hope that the electorate will say, hey guys, Ann Johnson and her colleagues have filed an independent commission to redraw the lines. Why don't you give that bill a hearing if we want to talk about elections? The Democrats in Congress voted for H.R. 1 that required an independent commission nationwide. Every Democrat voted for that. Every Republican voted against it. I hope that the people will rise up and say, hey guys, why don't you pass that nationwide so that politicians stop picking their elected officials and let the people draw the lines. To me, that's the ultimate win, but that is truly up to the people.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We are speaking with Texas House Representative Ann Johnson. You can join the conversation at 713-440-8870.
We've got a call hanging on, but before we go there, I just want to finish up what I was asking you earlier again. And I guess, and I understand what you're saying, and I'm following everything. What my real question is, though, Do you think there is an appetite on the other side of the aisle to move past this? Or is there anything that gives you any hope, or is it just hopeful thinking?
Well, hopeful thinking. Hope is contagious, right? And hopeful can be a good thing. I would ask my Republican colleagues to take a deep breath on this. I really want them to recognize, look, I'm somebody that is considered a Democrat who works across the aisle. I work with Republicans all the time, and I am telling them that when you threaten to kick us out of our seats, when you threaten financial ruin, when you have the police sitting outside our homes, threatening our neighbors and everybody, when you know we're not in the state, when you have your supporters that you've said to come hunt us down, when you know that we are getting threats to our lives and you sit on your hands and you say nothing, you've gone too far. This is politics. This is a quorum break is political. It's the exercise that we engage in. They have turned this into something that is dangerous. It's extreme. It's cheating and allowing a cheat. And I am begging them, like, show that courage that I know many of you have and say, hey, guys, it's not fair. Not only is what we're doing not fair, but threatening to hurt people that we call friends, and knowing that this is happening and not asking folks to tone down the rhetoric on people that what's our crime? Our crime is being public servants. Our crime is breaking quorum that's established in the Constitution. We're doing what they are doing. We're just happen to not be rolling over at this moment. And I do pray my colleagues will show some courage and say, we're not doing this way again. We're going to try to actually be fair and debate this on the ideas.
Let's go to some phone calls we've got coming in. If you've got a question or a comment, give us a call at 713-440-8870. Let's first go to Colby from Cypress. Colby, what's on your mind?
Hey, I just want to say thank you to the Congresswoman for doing what's right. You're doing exactly what your constituents voted for you to do. And I think the real dereliction of duty is in the governor's office, where they're treating flood victims like pawns in chess right now. And so I commend you for that. And my question is, if these special sessions just kind of continue indefinitely, so to speak, would that interfere with the filing deadline to be put on the ballot?
Thank you, Colby. Representative?
Yeah, I think that, thank you so much. And thank you for the support. And I think the thing that we worry about as Texas Democrats is I think Republicans feel like they can do whatever they want. And so there have been times where they've just moved the date of the election. And so we really are taking this one day at a time. And we have a phrase, and it comes from Governor Ann Richards, which is, you just win today. And so that's what we are doing. We are taking it one day at a time as to what's ahead of us and what we can do to try to put our folks in the best position to be protected. And so I'm not sure what this will look like 3 or 4 months from now. I know what Governor Abbott is threatening. And I will tell you, I think it shows how desperate he is, how desperate Republicans are to try to appease Trump and steal 5 seats for him. But I am praying to the higher angels of the people of Texas. I mean, I want everybody to let the governor and let Republican leadership know that, and you already have, by the way, 99% of you that came to testify on this bill said, we actually don't personally want this. This is not for us. But continue to voice that concern about, if you're going to call us back as a part-time legislature, can you please at least call us back for issues that affect all Texans and not just party politics?
And again, we're speaking with Representative Ann Johnson. You can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. We have a call from Chris from Cypress. Welcome to Hello Houston, Chris. What is your question or comment?
Hi, comment is about the redistricting. Also, just as a reminder, the governor has not called any type of special election for Sylvester Turner's seat, which has been vacant since I believe March. And make no mistake, it's not just about Texas. This is going to be the eyes of the nation is on us right now, and what's decided here and how this is handled will be affected in other red states. They'll try and pull the same shenanigans. And thank you, Representative, for taking a stand and doing what's right, and we support you fully in my household.
Thank you for that call, Representative.
Well, thank you. It means a lot, and you're exactly right. when Congressman Sylvester Turner passed away, it left Texas 18 without representation. And Trump's bill to cut millions more from healthcare and give tax breaks to the wealthy passed by one vote. That tells you how important that seat is. And the fact that the governor has left it open has meant that community did not get an opportunity to have their voice heard. Also, remember, Texas 18 is one of the districts they are completely cracking and dismantling in this potential next legislation to steal 5 seats. And so I thank you for encouraging us to continue to step up and make sure that the voices of our Houston area, our historic African-American district. I mean, Texas 18 was Barbara Jordan's seat, right? Our Latin community. Each of those communities is going to lose representation if this map holds up. It is unconstitutional, and it is a violation of the Voting Rights Act.
It's interesting when you talk about the 5 seats that the governor wants to carve out for potentially Republican representation, dismantling what's there. And they will argue, and we'll find out later in the hour when we talk to someone on the other side, they will argue that, it's for representation of what the voters need and who they are and who we are today and the change in all this. My concern is when yesterday the governor says a statement like, and excuse me for paraphrasing, when told about Gavin Newsom countering the 5, he said, well, if they take 5 more, we'll do 10 seats. Suddenly it doesn't sound like representation anymore on any level. It's purely a game of politics and it's not representing the people. Am I right or wrong in that?
No, you're right. And Governor Abbott is engaging in petty politics and pathetically trying to perform on behalf of Trump. I mean, Texas don't forget, when Texas did redistricting 4 years ago, Republicans in Texas drew the lines to heavily favor them. We are not like California. California actually has an independent commission to redraw the lines. The people drew those lines and then they voted. Texas started 4 years ago by drawing districts to be heavily Republican. And now they just want more. And as Abbott said, he wanted to take 5 or 10 more. The problem is it violates the Voting Rights Act because your districts are supposed to be drawn in a way that gives communities opportunity to have a voice and representation. And what they're trying to do in this new cut, and I know they're going to say, oh, they're actually minority majority. That's what we call a facade. The numbers are there to look like it's a minority majority, but they have cracked districts and put them in other places to ensure that white Republican voters will overcome the power of the minority party that's packed in there with them. And so even though they're going to claim they're trying to create minority districts, it's what we call a facade. It's not accurate. And remember that when we got 2 new seats last decade, it was because 95% of the growth of the state of Texas was minority districts, Hispanic and Black. And yet those 2 districts were drawn for white Republican voters. And so Republicans have done it before. That case is still pending in the courts to show that that was unconstitutional. And now, again, we're seeing a doubling down on the unconstitutionality. And it is a harm to the protection that every community and culture gets a chance to actually be heard in their government.
Representative Johnson, I do want to ask you one quick question. You mentioned about you are on the flood committee, and I know that that is something extremely important to Texans that affected so many Texans. How many times have you all met, and can you give us an update on where we are at in that on that agenda topic?
Yeah, we met twice. We met once in Austin to talk to agency heads after the flood, and then we went to Kerr County and we met with folks there. I have also had an opportunity to talk with families who were devastated by the floods and have lost loved ones, and I appreciate that they have taken the time to personally talk with me. If you go back and watch that hearing in Kerr County, you'll hear my Republican colleagues repeatedly say, we can't accomplish what we need here in 30 days. What we're talking about building up the infrastructure of our flood system, our extreme weather systems, our warning systems, it's not a quick fix, but it is something that we need to start working on now. What is a quick fix is Governor Abbott writing a check right now to supplement the loss that is happening in those counties, and he could do it. People need to remember, we are a part-time legislature. There are plenty of times where there are emergencies in Texas when only the governor is there, and he can do this. He can write that check right now. He does not need us to dole out money for flood relief. He does need us to change statutes, and we can do that. But my colleagues admitted That is a long-term discussion that's going to have to go into next session. And so I look forward to being there. I look forward to passing what we can on interoperability and other issues that we can mitigate now. But this must be a long-term commitment. Part of the reason that we are in the place we are now is because Republicans have not shown the political will to invest in this kind of debate for years.
We are speaking with Texas House Representative Democrat Ann Johnson, and we're taking your calls and questions at 713-440-8870. On the phone, we have David from Lake Jackson. David, what's on your mind?
Well, I wasn't sure this is true or not. I had to go online to verify.
David, we can barely hear you. Well, I think we can't hear him at all now. So let's go on to our next call. We'll see if we can get David back. It's
Lemon from
Lemon.
Clear Lake.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
Lemon, to Hello Houston.
Yes, thank you. I have a question for Representative Johnson. You answered the question being asked by the lady panelist. Do you know if the next session is going to be about redistricting? And you responded that we don't know yet. We're about to see. My question is, how about if redistricting is looped into flooding? Because it doesn't have to be one or the other. The governor can loop redistricting into the flooding bill and kind of play a trick for you and your team to kind of vote on both at the same session. In that situation, what is your plan, number one? And then I have a comment on it. The representative made a statement, and that is Republicans are trying to take away people that you voted for and replace them with people that they have selected or chosen. It's nothing more anti-American than that. Well, unfortunately, in my view, I don't think we live anymore in a situation where we are being pro-American. I think people care more about pro-Trump than anti-American, in my view.
Thank you for that.
Representative Johnson.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. And yes, we still don't know what the governor's going to call to bring us back, but he will put the items on the agenda. And just as you mentioned, does he want to talk about flood or does he want to talk about redistricting? And so while he can put them both on, it will be up to the House to decide what's more important. Are we putting flood relief on the call on a Monday and then putting redistricting on a Tuesday? Or are they going to do what they did this last time, which is only put redistricting up for a vote? And that is our position. I am a Democrat. I lose a lot in this Republican majority. They have run this state for 30 years, and we usually lose fair and square on ideas that are just about policy. Stealing 5 seats is not about policy. Stealing 5 seats is about breaking the integrity of the system and fundamentally cracking your ability to have your vote matter. I heard y'all talking before I came on about how there are actually more registered Democrats than Republicans, or people that vote Democrat than Republican in the state. But oftentimes people don't show up to vote because of gerrymandering, because they believe what is evident by this, which is the person that's going to represent you is decided before you even go cast your vote. That's vote suppression. And then people say, well, why bother to go vote? My vote doesn't count anyway. They've already picked who's going to represent me. Why step up and voice my opinion? And so that's a fundamental break to the integrity of our democracy. And that's why I'm stepping up. And I appreciate the families of flood victims who have called me to acknowledge they recognize there is a big distinction between fundamentally breaking how you can vote as an individual and trying to fight with the governor about doing flood relief, which he can be doing on his own anyway. They get it. And they also recognize that the governor is using him as cover to perform a completely extremist partisan steal. And they do appreciate that we're stepping up, and I'm grateful for their calls on that.
A quick point of clarification there, just so I can understand where you stand on this. Independent Voter Project, they were reporting 46.5% would be registered Democrats in Texas, 37.75 Republican. Does that sound about right with the numbers you understand too?
They sound good to me.
I'm sure they sound
I like
good.
what you're saying. And that's part of our challenge, which is folks that would, if they can get out, go vote. And that's, again, look at what Republicans did in 2021. Remember, we had 24-hour voting for people that were working 2 or 3 jobs, for people in the medical center that were working the night shift. They could go down and cast their vote. And you know what? More people voted. And so Republicans took that away and said, hey, Harris County, you can't do that anymore. You can't have drive-through voting, which 60% of women used, whether they're Republican or Democrat. But that makes sense because women are caregivers and may have an elderly family member or a child in the car, and it was easy for them to cast their vote. They took those things away, and that's what we know. If people feel encouraged that their voice matters, they'll vote. And that's why Republicans continue to do this. It is why we are taking a hard stand, because at this point, it's just a straight up mid-decade cheat. There's nothing in the rules that say you do this. They're just complying because Trump called and asked them to do it. Don't forget, Trump called Georgia and said, hey, boys, I need you to find me more than 11,000 votes after the 2020 election. And to their credit, those Republicans said, no, sir, that's a cheat. We don't play that way. When Trump called Greg Abbott and Texas Republicans and said, hey, boys, I need you to take me 5 seats, they said, does July work for you? I am a proud Democrat now in August to tell you we have been the line of defense. We have been running to the front line of this nation to say, this is not good. It is a red alarm that they are trying to steal the next election before you ever vote, and we're doing everything we can to protect it.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We are speaking with Representative Ann Johnson. John is on the line. John from Fort Bend, what is your comment or question for the representative?
I want more Texans to stand up in support of the Democrats because they are looking at a long-term picture here. This is about democracy, and this is guarding against a word which many in public radio and many in Texas want to use, which is fascism. The Texas House under Republican leadership has ceded way too much power to the executive branch and, frankly, the lieutenant governor. And the power, if you actually read the Texas state constitution, lies within the people. It lies within the legislature. We specifically had a weak executive designed for this purpose, to be reflective of the people. And that's all I got to say.
Thank
you
you.
for that.
We did also have an off-air comment. Lewis wanted to know, Representative, if a new session is a trap to get the Democrats to come back to Texas and not let them leave the state.
So again, we're working through all of that. There are specifics and procedures. And again, we want to show, I want to be there working. I want to be there talking about flood or human trafficking or infrastructure in our courts. And so again, I think you're going to see Democrats do their best effort to do good faith to try to work on behalf of the people of Texas. And so we will just have to see as this next couple of days play out, why do Republicans really want us there? And I appreciate the support. I appreciate the support very much. And as many of you probably know on this call, the governor can call us back session after session after session after session. And we have broken quorum. And it looks like now we've successfully broken this particular quorum to spark this courage among all individuals to step up against what's happening. And so we are doing our part. And I appreciate that people in Texas and across the nation are doing their part as well. This cannot be left just to us. It is left to all of us to voice this concern. And we are grateful that we could be part of the spark of this conversation, and we'll do everything we can to keep it going.
Quick point of clarity. Once this session ends and they close it, do then those warrants all go away, or do they carry through? Okay.
Correct. So the minute that they Sonny die, those arrest warrants are gone. And again, each special session is different. We're now going to be in the 89th one. The 89th one is going to end. And then you start a whole new thing for the 89-2. And that's where we are. And so, again, those arrest warrants, the minute they Sonny die, they are no longer valid in Texas.
Texas House Representative Ann Johnson. Representative Johnson, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And coming up on Hello Houston, we will also hear from the Majority Leader of the Texas House, Republican Dr. Tom Oliverson of Tomball. And right now, we're going to be chatting with Nusaiba Mizan, the Houston ISD reporter for the Houston Chronicle, about the changes ahead this year for the district. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
Hello, I'm Josh Adams, General Manager of Houston Public Media. This station just lost $2.2 million in federal support annually. To keep our station strong, we've launched the Resiliency Fund, powered by community members just like you. Your support will help bridge the funding gap and ensure these programs remain free and accessible to everyone. If public media and this station matter to you, now is the time to act. Support the Resiliency Fund today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Hi, this is Matt Harrop. There's been a lot of news to cover in Houston over the last few months. Keep listening to Houston Public Media for the latest, and if you've got a car, truck, boat, or RV you don't need anymore, donate it to the station. It could be worth hundreds of dollars in support. The donation process is easy for you, and we'll pick up your vehicle in any condition. Here's how to get started. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org/cars to learn more. Thank you.
Support comes from Houston Theater Week, a citywide celebration of live performances. Participating organizations include theater, dance, and music presenters, returning August 18th through 24th. Tickets at houstontheaterweek.com. Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Baylor College of Medicine. Through research and innovation, Baylor continues to redefine what's possible in healthcare and medical discovery.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous and Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
As Houston students return to the classroom, this school year begins under some changes for the Houston Independent School District, from a controversial new teacher pay model to the ongoing state takeover. HISD continues to be in the spotlight, and joining us today is Nusaiba Mizan, Houston ISD reporter for the Houston Chronicle. She's been following all of the developments closely, from staffing challenges to leadership changes, and is here to break down what families, educators, and what the wider community really need to know and honestly want to know. Nusaiba, good morning and welcome to Hello Houston. If you have a question, you can join the conversation at 713-440-8870.
Welcome. I guess the first place to start is, what do families need to know? How does this really affect them, and do they have any part in the play of what's going on beyond them?
Yeah, so we're entering a third year under state-appointed leadership. A lot of the changes that are implemented in schools is holding steady right now in terms of how the classes are structured. There will be an expanded cell phone ban under state law, so students can't take out their cell phones during passing periods and lunch. There was already a district cell phone ban for during class time, and that's pretty similar to what other school districts have as well.
Mm-hmm. And so, something that we were kind of watching and monitoring and asking was teacher turnover. As we were in the middle of the summer, we spoke with an educated expert on teacher turnover, Dr. Klusman. And he was saying at that moment around July, the numbers were looking about right. What can you tell us now that the school year has started? What can you tell us about that?
Sure. So for HISD, the turnover that is occurring is twice as high as June 2022 from before the state's appointment of leadership to the district. So more than 2,300 teachers have left the district in June, and that's among over 3,000 employee departures. And we saw similar numbers after the end of last school year as well. So there continues to be that level of turnover under state-appointed leadership.
Now, we're talking about teacher turnover. What about retention? Can you talk to us about student retention, students that are coming back? What does enrollment look like this year?
Yeah, so overall enrollment is dropping. The district lost 7,400 students in 2024-25.
I'm going to jump in right there to go back to teachers. There was also the teacher apprentice program, and about 700 were hired in for that. How did that help fill this gap with the teachers? Did they move up into teacher roles? What happened there?
So the superintendent on Friday noted that there will not be a need to pull substitutes, especially new education system schools, so schools that are seeing reforms, because there is that teacher apprentice model with around 700 teacher apprentices that are ready to fill in positions if needed with the start of the school year.
And, we've talked about students, we've talked about teachers. I really want to hear more about principals. And what can you tell us about how they're working with Superintendent Miles and what's the latest on that?
Sure. So there is still principal turnover to some extent. So around 40 schools will see new principals at the start of this school year. That's among around 270 schools across the district.
Mm-hmm. There has been a drop, I guess, about 4% in students registering this year. And I'm curious, with enrollment down, does 4% really, when we look at the vast size of this, is this a significant thing to take note of, or is it something that just ebbs and flows in that amount from year to year?
Yeah, I think it's important to think of some context details. So dropping to enrollment is something that a lot of districts are facing just kind of because of demographic shifts in general. So it will be yet to be seen whether that compounds over time to dropping enrollment, and a bigger question being where are those students going?
Right.
Mm-hmm. But I think we'll have yet to see where they're going and whether that's going to change structures, class sizes, etc. in the district.
With the talk of voucher systems and all of that, are we seeing growth in more private schools even while that program finds its way through?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that's also yet to be seen. I mean, that's something that was asked to the superintendent on Friday as well of HISD, and he said that we'll have yet to see what that happens there.
Is he concerned? Let me just follow that up. Is he concerned with that shift possibly into private schools and what that does then to funding for HISD, or is he on solid footing with where he's going and was expecting this?
Yeah, it was definitely a yet to see message right there, and I think that from what I'm hearing in terms of experts and other school leaders, that it is a yet to see kind of position.
And one of the big changes that was coming down this summer was pay for teachers. And we understand it was very controversial. I mean, questioning whether teachers should be paid based on merit versus based on experience. Can you refresh us on what they will be paid on now and what the update is on there?
Yeah, so I think overall the thing to note is that the direction that the district is going is that it's going to tie compensation to performance. And so right now, in terms of what pay structure looks like, it's very similar to last year in terms of how much teachers are being paid. However, there are state raises from the state that are going to be distributed by performance, and then the district is going to move toward a wholly compensation tied to performance system in 26-27.
And the other part of that is something that, a lot of people have been watching is HISD rolling out their accountability ratings. And that's also been very controversial because people have questioned the transparency and the way the accountabilities have been measured. What do parents need to know about where we're at now?
Yeah, I think we'll see what the data says on August 15th when the state officials' ratings come out from the state. Right now, the district is highlighting that there are no F-rated campuses in the district, and that there is an increase in A and B-rated campuses.
Interesting.
Is that more of a sign of improvement in the quality of the education or a shift in the way they're looking at schools?
I think it depends on who you ask. There's a lot of discussion about what factors over time have changed in the accountability ratings, but then also the general factors when it comes to college readiness, state test scores. That's all has been part of the accountability system.
Let me take you back to compensation for a minute. It looks like Superintendent Mike Miles is sitting pretty. He's in a nice, comfortable place with his salary. If I'm reading the reports right, it's upward a little past $450,000 a year, or during term. I'm not sure how they compensate him. But how does that sit well with what's going on with teacher salaries and all the others? Is it pulled from the same pot of money? Is his success their deterrent? What goes on there?
I can't immediately speak to which pot of money in the budget that's pulled from, but that is a point of discussion of the percentage increase in the superintendent's compensation relative to the percentage the increases that teachers have seen in the state distributed raises.
Yeah.
Nusaiba, you've been covering HISD, and last year, the year before, it's been culturally really a lot of upset families, and there was protest, walkouts, sick outs. Where are we at this year, school year? What is that feeling that you're gathering from the community?
Yeah, I mean, anecdotally, I can say that the protests and the discussion will continue. I mean, these are controversial reforms that are taking place. It's very polarizing. So I think we'll see what shape that takes this year.
Mm-hmm. And coming up, we will, in the second hour of Hello Houston, be speaking to a community advocacy group, the Community Voices for Public Education, who have been very outspoken about some of these controversial reforms. Now, Nusaiba, we say that they're controversial, but based in other states and looking at other school districts, maybe perhaps even within our own state, are these reforms, actually education reforms and policies, controversial, or is it just different?
I think it depends on who you ask in terms of how to take them, whether they're controversial or different. I mean, some of the reform strategies that are in place have taken place in different forms in different districts across the country. Qualifying it, I think, depends on who you ask and which expert you ask, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at where we are today, does it speak well of our community, regardless of the political influence, but looking at where we are as a school district, where we have gotten to, where we came from, when we look at other school districts, especially coming out of the pandemic and all of that, do you feel from what you report, we're doing well?
I think it depends on who you ask and what's how you measure it. So in terms of test scores and accountability ratings, there's been big improvements. In terms of teacher retention, families will be quick to point out who they miss and who's left. So I think in terms of the measures that the district is held up to, such as test scores and accountability ratings, based on the data that we're receiving from the district and from the state, there have been improvements.
Mm-hmm.
Your understanding of the takeover and how much longer it would continue. From what you hear, what you see, we know that it's continued on. But how much longer do you think Houston is going to have this going on? And is it a good thing that if it did continue on, that it is growing with the community and reacting to the community and maybe learning how to be a better organization?
Yeah, I'm not sure how state-appointed leadership will react to the community and to what extent that will happen. However, in terms of how long the takeover will be, the state has said at least 2 years, and then we'll look at whether there should be a transition to an elected board, and that would be over the course of 3 years.
Nusaiba Mizan is the Houston ISD reporter for the Houston Chronicle. Nusaiba, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Stay with us as Hello Houston continues. We will be back after this break.
With federal support gone, Houston Public Media needs a stronger foundation for the future. The Houston Public Media Resiliency Fund is our response to ensure this service remains strong, stable, and community-powered. Your gift today helps us stay on the air tomorrow and the day after that. Give now to the Resiliency Fund at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
News 88.7.
Federal funding for public media has been cut. Our response? The creation of Houston Public Media's Resiliency Fund.
Donations made toward the Resiliency Fund will help bridge the gap from the loss of the $2.2 million annually in federal funds that were cut.
Giving to this fund is easy and quick, and it makes all the difference to our station.
Help build the Resiliency Fund now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from Gen Pro, a Houston-based home generator service providing power to homes during unexpected outages, helping with connectivity and productivity. More information is available at genpro.com.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, learn more about the American Revolution, the new 6-part series from Ken Burns coming in November. Watch The American Revolution, an inside look, tonight at 7 on Houston Public Media TV 8, or stream online.
Support comes from Serverless Solutions, aligning businesses with technology, including cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and cloud-based infrastructure. More information is available at serverless-solutions.com.
Now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous and Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
So much going on today.
There's a ton going on, and we're going to continue to monitor everything that's coming out of Austin. And also within this hour, we will be next hour we will be speaking with Texas Representative Dr. Tom Oliverson.
Yes, and I take that pause because there's something that came up in the news, and I wanted to get your opinion on it because I think you are a woman of a certain age.
Yes.
And this will ring to your time.
Yes.
I've heard that Claire's, the retailer in the malls, is closing down, leaving millions of teen girls with no place to get their ears pierced.
But is it actually closing down, or are they just filing for bankruptcy? And yes, Claire's there used to be Icings and there's Claire's. Now I think that there's Justice, but Claire's that's where you get all your stick-on earrings. That's where you get your ears pierced when you're like 5.
A rite of passage I never passed into. I find it fascinating that it was even still open. I didn't know they were still around.
Oh, they are around, and they're all over the world. I had a friend post, she's in Venice, and she posted a Claire's store in Venice. Beautiful, beautiful luxury. But Claire's is a fun place where you can take your daughter or your son, and they can pick out all kinds of fun, glittery, and just tchotchke things.
They're struggling with big debt load and changing consumer tastes. So
give me some good news, Ernie.
I don't. I've got another bad news.
All
Want
right.
another bad news?
Yeah.
Panera bread stores, about 15 of them in our area are going to close. These franchisees are filing for bankruptcy.
Well, Panera Bread, to me, got a bad rap when they were looking at their ingredients and their calorie list and the sodium. And they were kind of touting themselves as a healthier option than fast food. And it turns out they are no healthier than fast food.
Well, moving along in my closing businesses, my last closing business is Trump Burger is closing. That is a Donald Trump themed restaurant. It has had a lot of struggles. The co-owner of the Donald Trump themed restaurant in the Houston area faces possible deportation after he was arrested by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, in May for allegedly overstaying his visa, according to a federal agency.
Yikes.
Yeah, kind of a worrisome story there.
A worrisome story. But, to me, it's just this. What makes it interesting is that he co-owns a restaurant that is President Trump themed. And I drive by that restaurant on my way home, and I'm always curious, is it a little too gimmicky? I mean, is it kind of just like, I don't know,
And I did say that it was closing. I don't know that necessarily Trump Burger is closing, but we do know the situation going on with the co-owner, which would make it hard to run if you're in detention.
I need something lighter, Ernie. Usually you give us a good
something
day.
Lighter. Okay, today is
Ernie.
National Vinyl Record Day.
Oh, that's interesting.
Do you collect records? Do you have vinyl?
I don't, but over the summer we were visiting my sister in Colorado, and we stayed at this really cool little Airbnb, and they had a vinyl record player. And they had the vinyl records, and my kids loved, and I spent hours putting the records on, doing the process.
I still have probably about 1,000 record albums. I had up to almost 5,000, and when I moved, that's got smaller. When I moved again, it got even less. Now I've got about 1,000 left, but I still do love a good vinyl.
Yes.
Just having them. But anyway, that's the lighter side of it all. And we're going to move into the next hour of the show. We're going to get back into the news and the important topics. We are also going to be talking with a Republican lawmaker who's going to give us their side of the aisle, the House Majority Leader for the Texas House. Dr. Tom Oliverson will be joining us in the next hour, and we hope you will be too. We'll see you right after this break.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Houston Public Media is a service of the University of Houston and is supported with your gifts to the Houston Public Media Foundation. More information available online at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
We have about a 40% chance of a shower or thunderstorm, mainly after 2 today. It's 86. This is your NPR station, KUHF. Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, we'll speak with House Representative Dr. Tom Oliverson, the current chair of the House Republican Caucus and the majority leader of the Texas House, who will share his thoughts on the state's redistricting fight. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also hear from a local community advocacy group, Community Voices for Public Education, who will discuss how the impact of the state's takeover of HISD continues to be felt.
Plus, as we enter a new school year, we'll talk with a Baylor registered dietitian who will tell us how parents can ensure they pack nutritious lunches for their children this school year.
And we want to hear from you, so give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Final preparations are underway for Friday's summit between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. Trump is still trying to negotiate an end to Russia's war in Ukraine. NPR's Charles Maines is following developments from Moscow.
The Kremlin has remained largely silent since confirming Putin's participation in the summit last week. Only Putin's U.S. envoy, Kirill Dmitriev, has taken to publicly praising the choice of location. Dmitriev has repeatedly pointed to Alaska as a symbolic bridge between nations, given the state's history as once part of the Russian Empire sold to the U.S. in the 1860s. Yet Alaska is also a long way from Ukraine, where Trump says a deal to end Russia's war there may involve some swapping of different lands. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky will not be included in the talks, and he and his European allies say that while they appreciate Trump's peace efforts, they will reject any concessions negotiated behind their backs. Charles Maines, NPR News, Moscow.
Trump's extending a trade truce with China an additional 90 days. Had that truce expired overnight as planned, the world's two biggest economies would have resumed a trade war involving tit-for-tat tariff hikes. The president's tariffs are raising prices for imported items such as furniture and toys. NPR's Scott Horsley reports that contributed to stubbornly high inflation last month.
A new report from the Labor Department shows consumer prices in July were up 2.7% from a year ago. The rising cost of rent, airfare, and used cars was partially offset by a drop in the price of gasoline. Stripping out volatile energy and food prices, core inflation jumped to 3.1% for the 12 months ending in July. The effects of President Trump's worldwide tariffs can be seen in the rising price of imported goods such as toys and home furnishings. While overall grocery prices were down during the month, imported foods like coffee and bananas got more expensive. Earlier this month, Trump ordered a new round of even higher tariffs, which could put upward pressure on prices for months to come. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
Pfizer says the Food and Drug Administration may withdraw the authorization of the company's COVID-19 vaccine for very young children. NPR's Rob Stein has that story.
Pfizer's COVID vaccine has been available to kids ages 6 months to 4 years under what's called an emergency use authorization. But Pfizer says the FDA has informed the company the agency may not renew that authorization. So the company is working with the FDA to try to keep the vaccine available for very young kids. They're at high risk for serious complications. Moderna's COVID vaccine would still be available for kids in that age group who have other health problems, but this could leave healthy kids in limbo. Rob Stein, NPR News.
U.S. stocks are trading higher this hour with the Dow up 442 points, or more than 1%. It's NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. Authorities in Northeast Houston are trying to find the cause of what sounded like a loud explosion that shook homes in the Atascocita area. Here for a live update is News 88.7's Dominic Anthony Walsh.
At 10:41 this morning, the Atascocita Fire Department reported an explosion on its website at a house. But when I called the homeowner, Ronald Walker, his house was still very much intact. He's retired and he says he was relaxing in his recliner around 10:25 a.m.
And I heard this loud boom, which actually rattled my windows and kind of shook the house a little bit.
He called the fire department, which for some reason listed his address on its website, but a spokesperson for the department tells Houston Public Media it actually has not found the source of the sound. People on social media are reporting hearing the sound of the explosion across a wide area, from Humble to Kingwood to Huffman, but it's unclear where exactly the sound originated or what caused it. The Harris County Sheriff's Office says it believes it could be associated with a community education class hosted by a local fire department in Atascocita, but still the Sheriff's Office says the source of the loud booming sound has not been identified at this time.
That's Dominic Anthony Walsh reporting. As a new school year kicks off, Union Pacific Railroad has resumed their normal traffic schedule near one Houston ISD school where a student died crossing train tracks last year. Safety reforms to the crossing were promised, but as our Bianca Seward reports, little has changed.
15-year-old Sergio Rodriguez was fatally struck by a Union Pacific train in December while crossing the tracks on his way to school. The tragedy prompted promises from city officials and Union Pacific, which included limiting trains in the area during student pickup and drop-off hours. The reversal was a surprise for State Senator Carol Alvarado, who represents the area.
I want to hear from them how they're justifying that flipping on their decision, because that's not what we got the last time we talked to them.
In a statement, Union Pacific said a return to a normal train schedule was needed to reduce blocked crossings and congested areas in other parts of the city. Union Pacific expanded the sidewalk at the crossing, added new fencing, and is promoting a railroad safety campaign. For News 88.7, I'm Bianca Seward.
I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One with the Capital One Saver Card. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation at macfound.org.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Well, as we said in the first hour, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as Meatloaf used to say. Celeste is here with me. I'm Ernie. Frank is on a much-deserved vacation, enjoying traveling the world and everything he gets to do. So anyway, we've had a very busy first hour of the show. It's going to continue. We are in a state that has a lot of news being generated out of us, so we know what's going on. We're trying to keep you informed each step of the way. Remember, you can watch us as we do all of this on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and look for the Houston Public Media channel, and we're there. And also, you can call us for any of our guests as we go through the show today, 713-440-8870, or text us.
That's right. And right into the headlines.
Let's just get right into it because there's a lot going on.
Texas House Democrats again broke quorum today with a total of 95 members present, 2 fewer than Monday's session. House Speaker Dustin Burrows made the announcement from the dais that if the House still does not have quorum by Friday, the legislature concludes the session and the governor will call another special session of legislature. Governor Greg Abbott is being clear on his plan. He announced shortly after that if the legislature does conclude on Friday, he is prepared to call another special session immediately. Just minutes ago, the governor sent out a press release around 10 o'clock stating the second special session will have the exact same 18-item agenda as the current session we are in. That includes redistricting and flood response. Tuesday and today marks the 9th day of the quorum break. Joining us now is House Representative Dr. Tom Oliverson. He represents Texas, 130th State House District in Northwest Harris County, including the communities of Tomball, Cypress, Waller, and Hockley. He is the current chair of the House Republican Caucus and the majority leader of the Texas House. If you have comments or questions for Representative Oliverson, you can call 713-440-8870. Representative Oliverson, welcome to Hello Houston. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Glad to be with you. Thank you for the invitation.
So, we just spoke with Representative Ann Johnson, who's one of the Democratic legislatures who's out of the state. And she is saying that they are calling this a win, that the governor is saying that they're going to end the special session and he will call another. But as of right now, they're calling this a win. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Well, I think they have to have a jumping off point for this. The reality is that the quorum break is exactly what the quorum break was when we encountered it in 2021. And that was a group of folks got up and left because they were angry about what the legislature was doing. And so, breaking quorum is in the Constitution. It's something that can be done. The problem with it, though, is that there's not really a defined end, and there wasn't in 21, and there's not now. So everything that you said is accurate, and I suspect that the governor will call us back almost immediately and keep calling us back, because the reality is that these 18 items are going to get done. Sooner, whether we do them this week or next week or the week thereafter, they're going to get done. There's not a strategy or a possibility whereby we get to the end of the 2-year cycle and these matters remain unresolved. So I'm sure it is a win from the standpoint of, we won round one, we defeated the Republicans in the first special session, but ultimately, we are going to win the battle on this, and that the matters before the legislature will be passed.
Representative, I'm curious, from your personal point of view, do you think this is the right thing to be doing, this redistricting at this point and in this manner?
I do, and I think it's a very fair game. And as I've said before, this issue sort of was brought to my attention by one of our Republican grassroots leaders in Texas, Dr. Robin Armstrong, mentioned to me before we even went into session that there was a court ruling that concerned a case in Galveston and the coalition districts and such, and that, this is something that should be looked into. So I think it's well within our right to do so. Other states have. I think you've heard time and time again over the last couple of weeks, as this has gotten some national prominence, that there are many, many states where redistricting for partisan performance has been a way of life for 20, 30 years, particularly in Democrat states.
But should it be? I guess that's the question a lot of us are toying with now, is like, yeah, it might be legal, it might be politically advantageous, but is it true and right for people and their representation to be in a game like this?
I think the more appropriate question would be, is it appropriate for one side to be able to do it and not the other?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I think so the question that you're asking is, we've allowed people to get away with it up until this point, but now that Texas is trying to do it, we want to have a conversation about whether it should be done at all. And I guess my answer would also include the question of, does that mean that we're going to unwind all of the maps in states like California, Illinois, Massachusetts, New York, where they are clearly redistricted in very partisan ways to outperform for the Democrat Party?
I've been looking at numbers today, and I want to share some of these with you. So walk with me through these numbers for a little bit. The Independent Voter Project looked at Texas and is making the assumption of registered voters that about 46.5% are Democrats and 37.75% are Republican. But then if you look at the election of 2024, about 56% of people voted for Trump, the Republican, and only 42% went with Harris. If I understand what the argument for this redoing of the maps is to represent the current flow of political ideology, political beliefs in the state so that it's more representative of the people. And if you look at the current Texas House, it's basically 59% Republican, 41% Democrat, almost kind of matching with what the Trump-Harris vote was. So isn't it already reflecting the political will of the people, even with the Republican majority at the majority level it is? Isn't that the right way it should be? Adding now more seats now that's just in the House. When you then go to the U.S. House of Representatives, which this map would impact, the current situation is Republicans have 66% of the seats with Democrats only 32, much less representative of what was voted in the last election. I'm just trying to figure out in all of this, what is the way to approach this that we are truly representing the voters of our state, regardless of what other states have done in the past, regardless of what we do in the future, that there should be a new way to look at how we represent our people. Talk to me about this.
Well, I think so. First of all, I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with the project you're talking about, but those numbers don't really comport with what I've seen in terms of partisan makeup in our state. And I would add to that I think we know that Texas is trending Republican, and so it's becoming a more Republican state, not a less Republican state, and a lot of that is being fueled by minority voters that are switching parties, particularly in South Texas. So, the premise there, I'm not 100% sure about. But to your other questions, I mean, I think, the reality is you're talking about federal elections, and you're talking about federal office holders, and you're talking about representation in Congress. And the issue is, of course, that when we look at the composition of Congress, and we look at federal elections, what one state does affects what other states do. And so we're kind of all in this together. So while I appreciate these conversations about, making sure that things are fair and all that kind of stuff, I think that either has to be a 50-state national conversation, or it's not worth having that conversation right now. I mean, I don't think it's fair for one team to be able to get away with gerrymandering out the wazoo, going back 10, 15, 20 years. But when the other side starts doing it, you say, oh, that's really not in the best interest of the voters. I mean, I just feel like there's a certain lack of fairness to the premise that's being raised with respect to, I feel like there's a one-sidedness to this whole argument.
Do you feel, though, that this is a good move in the position that, like what you just said, it is starting a national conversation and people are looking much more closely now at how we make our maps, how we decide our representation? Could this ultimately be a good thing in the future as we take lessons from all of this infighting we're seeing, not just here, but now spreading across the country?
I do think that. And I will tell you something else that I think, related to that hopefully that we could all agree on, which is that I do think, with respect to the 2020 election and some of the questions that were raised after that, it was pretty clear that the court didn't feel as though that the actions of one state impacted the actions of another state with regards to their elections. And I just feel like as an American citizen, like that flies in the face of democracy as we know it, to say that, what people who are next door to you that are also voting, we're all in this together or we're not, right? So I do think there are a lot of questions regarding how federal representation is determined and how state-run federal elections are done. There are a lot of questions that need to be asked about basic fairness.
Representative Oliverson, you mentioned one-sidedness, and I want to move towards something all Texans can get behind, and that is flood mitigation. And from what I understand, Governor Abbott could fund flood mitigation efforts and relief. So why is he presenting it as an agenda item and not just moving forward with something that seems to be pretty obvious?
Yeah, so I'm actually on the budget committee, on the appropriations committee. And I would say that, to a certain extent, the governor does have authority for emergency funding. However, if you look at the legislation that was to be considered today, that was not funding legislation. That was all about emergency preparedness. That was all about making sure that camps that are located along the river have evacuation plans. There was a whole variety of things that were heard, that were seen, that were talked about. Just throwing money at what happened in Kerrville and in Central Texas is not going to prevent this from happening again. And so I think that is the biggest thing that I hope your listeners realize, is that by running the clock out on this session, that we are delaying the possibility of fixing the systemic fundamental problems with emergency preparedness and emergency action that we were prepared to vote on today. And those are not funding issues.
Right. And just to clarify, we did have Representative Ann Johnson on earlier, and she said that during this special session, only one bill was presented, and that bill was redistricting. So given the fact that we are in a space of urgency, we do understand the impact that the Kerrville and the Kerr County floods have had on so many families that are still experiencing that devastation. Can you explain to us what that strategy and what that looks like, and where we're at on this? Because I know Texans want answers when it comes to flood mitigation efforts and relief.
Yeah, so I would just say to begin with that the premise that she made to you earlier is wholly inaccurate. The calendar that was on the House floor today for consideration was a panel of bills. I believe there were 5 or 6 bills on the calendar that were all structural changes and improvements to disaster response and emergency preparedness that were policy-driven decisions. And it wasn't even one bill on the floods. Like I said, it was multiple bills. Mm-hmm. That is what my colleague and my other colleagues, that is what they ran out on today. They ran out on a full calendar that was set to be discussed today on the House floor that had to do with emergency response, disaster planning for what happened in Central Texas, that now is going to have to wait till the next special session.
And, on this topic, and we can move on after this, but I do want to we understand that Governor Abbott is the one who sets the agenda, and he puts the topics and he sets that agenda. Why not just focus then on flood relief and mitigation? Why not just get to what is at the heart of Texans right now?
Well, I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time, and we're going to do those things. There were a number of bills that the governor put on the special session call, some of which were very bipartisan bills that he vetoed for very specific reasons. I think he explained that. And then he gave clear instructions as to how those matters could be resolved and improved upon. And you see those on the special session. So I think the special session, obviously, there are 2 very important issues top of everyone's mind. There's a third one that we haven't talked about, which is property tax relief, which is certainly something that needs to be done. We continue to work to lower property taxes for the citizens of our state. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint, but we were going to get another opportunity to do so. That's on the call. And I guess the last thing I would just say, and again, this is the second quorum break that I've been through. And from the perspective of just a rank and file Republican lawmaker, the thing that I don't understand is, so when you get up and you run away, it's almost like you're running out on a marriage, right? We're all here to work together. We don't always agree, but we're a family. We do the best we can to get along. And when we can help each other, we help each other. But when you get up and walk out, you create a lot of animosity with the folks that are left behind. And so what I think ends up happening translationally is when you do finally get back together, there's even less sympathy or desire to meet the other side halfway on some of these issues. And it becomes like, I know now it's time for you to sit down and be quiet, and we need to get the work done. And so it almost has the opposite effect on bipartisanship, the quorum break does, or at least that is what I observed last time. And that is kind of what I'm seeing in the House in terms of sentiment.
If the
people
tables
are not happy.
If the tables were turned, How would you advise your fellow Republicans to handle a situation like this if the Democrats were in power and wanting to put a map through that then gave them even more power on the federal level? What would your advice be on how to combat that?
Yeah, and I mean, I think, you could ask my friends in Illinois Republicans or California Republicans or my friends in the New York Assembly. How do they survive that, right? I think the reality is that as one of my colleagues, a Democrat, many years of experience and a good friend told me, he said, the majority party has the responsibility and also the burden to set the agenda and to govern. And the minority party, sorry, my light, we got a little power saving going on here. Just so you know, we're saving electricity in the Capitol.
Well, they can't accuse us of making
I
you
didn't
wiggle.
move quick enough or long enough. So
Right,
that
they
the power
can't
went
accuse us of making you wiggle in your seat.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We're green here.
Yes.
We're saving energy.
Representative
But,
Oliverson, you did mention California, and California does have a redistricting commission. Do you think that's something that the state of Texas would look at, given the fact that here we are in this kind of stalemate? Do you think that is something Texas legislatures would think of and move forward on?
I have not seen a redistricting commission put forward that I felt was truly bipartisan. And so, no, I would have to say that we would not ever do it the way California does it, because I think ultimately, from what I've seen and observed, their redistricting commission is essentially just kind of running as a blocking back for the California Democrat Party.
And we do have a call. We are speaking with Representative Dr. Oliverson, and we have a call from Kevin from the North Side. Kevin, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question for Dr. Oliverson?
Hello, how you doing? Thank you for taking my call. So I just wanted to kind of highlight some things that you had said earlier about legacy districts. I know that historically in Texas, legacy districts, I guess when you look at the history, they were only given because of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So as a black Texan, when I think about that, my rights to vote was only because of, the Voting Rights Act, that's kind of emotional for me. And then, when you start talking about redistricting and going after those districts, I'm glad that the Democrats are actually standing up for that reason, because, if it wasn't for the pre-clearance, because we know historically Texas has been known to have racially motivated voting policies, if it wasn't for the pre-clearance, we wouldn't have the advancements that we have. So since the pre-clearance has been taken away now, it's like, okay, the gloves are off, and now we can go after you again. That's what it feels like to me as a black Texan, because I'm looking at the districts that are being targeted, and I'm looking at the history of the state that I live in.
Thank you, Kevin, for that call. Representative Oliverson, do you have a comment for that?
Yeah, and Kevin, I certainly respect the sentiment and where you're coming from. And obviously, I can't undo history. And I think the best thing that we can do is always learn from history, try not to repeat history. But again, I wasn't a lawmaker in the 1950s and 60s, and I do not want any Texan that has the right to vote, a legal citizen. I do not want anybody to not be able to express their voice and vote for their choice. And so I think the issue that was dealt with by the Voting Rights Act and was clarified by the recent court decisions had to do with what are called coalition districts, where you have multiple groups that are sort of stuffed together for the purpose of saying, well, it's a minority district now. And so that's kind of different. And I think the courts felt like that was inconsistent with what the Voting Rights Act was trying to do. And I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a judge, and so I can't really get into the specifics of that, but that's my understanding. I will say this: 4 of the 5 new districts, as they are proposed, are majority Hispanic districts. And so with respect to, making sure that groups that are minority groups within our state have representation, the ability to elect someone of their choosing, that is still being done. That is the case. So anyway, I we may not see eye to eye on that, but I do want you to know that I do believe that every Texan should have the right to have their voice heard.
House Representative Dr. Tom Oliverson, chair of the House Republican Caucus and the majority leader of the Texas House. Representative Oliverson, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
We hope to have you back.
Okay, thank you.
Coming up on Hello Houston, Community Voices for Public Education's Kylie Mavris will discuss how the impact of the state's takeover of HISD continues to be felt. This is News 88.7. With federal funding cuts, Houston Public Media has lost $2.2 million annually. In response, we have launched the Resiliency Fund, an urgent initiative to protect the programs and services you rely on. That includes PBS Kids, that provides free educational programming to children and families across Greater Houston. Your support of the Resiliency Fund helps keep this vital service accessible to our community. Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
The number of people out of work for 27 weeks or more is one of those key but not often highlighted economic indicators.
It's the most long-term joblessness we've seen since the end of 2021 and some of that tail end of COVID-19 recovery.
I'm Kai Rizdal, the long tail of long-term unemployment. That's next time on Marketplace.
You can listen to Marketplace coming up tonight at 6:30.
Houston Public Media, in partnership with Texas Southern University, brings to you The Vibe. R&B, hip-hop, and neo-soul. Music that resonates with all ages. The Vibe on 88.7 HD3 and on the Houston Public Media app.
Support comes from the Extended Campus at UT Austin, connecting individuals and organizations with continuing and professional education programs that empower career growth and support staff development. More at extendedcampus.utexas.edu.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous and Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
The state takeover of Houston ISD continues to spark deep concern among some students, parents, and educators across the city. From the elimination of elected school board power to changes in curriculum, campus libraries, and staffing decisions, critics argue the takeover is undermining public education and community voices in the process. One group pushing back is Community Voices for Public Education, a grassroots coalition of students, teachers, and families fighting for equity, democracy, and local control in our schools. And to discuss is Kylie Mavris, a student organizer for CVPE, to talk about how the community continues to respond to the takeover. Kylie, good morning and welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And if you would like to join the conversation, you can send us a text or give us a call at 713-440-8870. Now, Kylie, I kind of described what you all do and who you are. Can you talk to us about when y'all started? Did CVPE start when the takeover started, or had it already been there?
No, so CVPE has been an organization long before the takeover started. CVPE was engaged in efforts for more equitable education, and that includes smaller class sizes, low-stake testing, putting the value of students around students, and centering education around students. And so with a Community Voice for Public Education, we're just parents, teachers, students, community members as a whole looking towards a more equitable future. And then the takeover, when the takeover was introduced, that became a new mission to achieve this more equitable future.
Sure.
I assume when you look at something like this, because you have an ideal of how you hope the schools would run for the equity and all that you talk about. Is there a model you've seen? Is there another school district somewhere nationally that you look to that says they got it right? That's what we should be emulating. Or are we finding that nobody's really figuring out how to fix this machine?
So I'm not an expert on public education. I would say I'm more of an expert on student experiences, and under the takeover and knowing how students are feeling about what's going on in the schools. Looking towards other school districts, I'm not entirely sure, but what I do know is that the current system in HISD is not working for the students that I've talked to and worked with.
Let me just follow up on that real quickly. What do you see a difference from before the takeover to now that we saw a drop in student experience, or
100%? Some of the students that I talked to, they describe walking into their school right now as walking into funerals. They describe that the fun that they had in education, that group environment, presentations, learning how to do public speaking, learning how to engage with their students, how to apply what they're learning, has been stripped from the classroom under the NES model. Mm-hmm. And so they're not excited to go back into the classroom. They're not excited. There's freshmen right now going into physics, and they're not excited for that. I
had a background in Algebra 1, and I didn't like going into physics. I never understood physics.
But, Kylie, did you see that difference from when Superintendent Miles and the takeover happened? I mean, we understand that, when Superintendent Miles and the takeover happened, he's been pretty clear and open about he was going to do this change, and the change was fast. Mm-hmm. Now we're going into 3 years. Are students still feeling that same feeling from the first year to now?
I would say they're even more hopeless, if that's the right word. I've seen a difference in students that have experienced pre-takeover and takeover HISD education. And I saw that in the seniors that just recently graduated. And they had hope, and they had seen what their schools used to be, what the education that they used to receive, the teachers that they used to love that are now gone. With the amount of turnover that happened, these students lost the stability that they had in their education system. These students lost certified teachers. These students lost the ability to engage with their learning.
Mm-hmm. Let me take it to a slightly different position. Mm-hmm. All the reports we hear, all the official documentation that comes out of the school system, on paper, things are improving. F-score schools have gone away. Things are moving up. The test scores are better. Things that... I guess, first of all, would you agree with what they're reporting out? And second of all, are we breaking a few eggs to make this omelet of a better education system?
Yeah, so I think there's two important things to recognize. One, test scores are not the end-all be-all of students. There's many better ways to measure student outcomes. However, when we look at test scores, one thing that Mike Miles likes to talk about is the gains in biology, scores. However, when we look at in NES schools, the only students that were able to take the biology star were 9th grade honors students. The remainder of those students were then forced to take classes like integrated physics and chemistry, which was essentially a biology light. So by the time they were in their sophomore year, their biology scores would be increased, yes, but those students also are now less competitive as compared to students from non-HISD schools in terms of the amount of classes that they can take in terms of AP classes, because the normal schedule would be biology, chemistry, physics, and then either an AP biology, AP chemistry, or just another extracurricular science.
Mm-hmm. Do the students feel, though, they may not, when it comes to the experience, they may not have the joy of it, but when they're coming out of these grades, do they feel prepared to move to the next grade? Are they feeling like they're getting educated, even if the experience, and I know, I am a big proponent of education is more than just the classes you take in the classroom. The reason we go to college isn't for the college classes. It's you become a person there. But are they feeling like they are getting educated moving forward, or do they feel there's a lack of basic reading, math, and these skills?
Yeah, so I think a good example of this is I had a student that I was working with, and she was taking physics her freshman year, and she had a dream of going to UT Austin, and she thought her whole school was over because she was getting 70s. She was she was barely getting 70s, and she thought she was never going to get into UT Austin after that. And it's discouraging students from engaging in the sciences afterwards, because previously she thought she wanted to be an engineer. She thought she wanted to go into engineering. But taking physics her first year really drove her away from it because she has no background in the Algebra 1 basics. So moving forward, she didn't really want to engage in the sciences as much. So I think it's very discouraging towards students.
You're listening to Hello Houston, and we are speaking with Kylie Mavris, student organizer for Community Voices for Public Education. You can join the conversation at 713-440-8870, and we do have a call. Lee from Sharpstown is on the line. Lee, what's your comment or question? Welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm an IT guy, and I do network installs in rural school districts and charter schools all over Houston and Texas, from Texarkana down to Zapata. And I see a lot of different approaches. What HISD is doing is horrible. It was bad before the takeover, but it's gotten so much worse. Teacher turnover is atrocious. Teachers are taking $20,000 a year pay cuts just to get out. Student turnover is horrible, and every charter school in Houston is bursting at the seams as students and teachers just get out. And my experience with all of these districts all across the state, it's not about the money. It's more about accountability, because some of these rural school districts have very, very little money and excellent education. But I think the big difference is superintendents that are likely to run into parents at HEB are going to be more accountable than Mike Miles, who doesn't care about anyone or any accountability. It's just bad, so bad.
Thank you, Lee, for joining for the conversation. You know, it's interesting. You know, CVPE, you guys have been around and y'all are working towards making the student experience better and bringing that, empowering parents and students and with their voices. What kind of impacts have y'all had over the years that you can tell us about?
Yeah, so as CVPE or as an organizational level, I think one of the great victories was beating the HISD bond in a situation where we honestly thought that might not happen. We honestly thought we might not beat this because of the amount of money that was backed behind the bond, the amount of engagement that the HISD district was doing around the bond. And so defeating that bond really showed the power that communities have and the power that comes with students speaking up. Students were there during the HISD bond conversation. They had opinions on what they wanted and what they felt was a waste of money and who they actually trusted with that money.
And
I've kind of become the numbers guy here in the corner, and I'm always trying to figure this. I'm just curious how you are engaging with the students so that you have these responses, because most of what you're telling me is I heard from this student and that student. Help our audience understand how you navigate in with them, what you do to get the results, and understand what the trends are and what's happening out there.
Yeah, of course. So a lot of students actually will reach out to us some of the times. So when they see students that have been engaging in the walkouts that started a long time ago and that developed and cared about their education, they were working with CVPE, they were working with other groups as well. And then students saw those students engaging. And then I would get a message saying, hey, can I help out? Is there a way that I can engage? I'll get an email. And they'll be like, is there anything that I can do? Can I write? I had a student ask if they could write an op-ed. And I was like, we can try to teach you. We can get somebody to try to teach you that kind of work. And so students want to engage. They want to be a part of their voices being heard. And so it's kind of, in a sense, easy to talk to students. And so we held an internship over the summer that taught about student advocacy, that taught students leadership skills, and how to engage with their communities in safe, respectful, and effective ways.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We're speaking with Kylie Mavris, a student organizer with CVPE. You can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. Ruth from Rice University is on the line. Ruth, welcome to Hello Houston. What's your comment or question?
My comment is that I have a doctorate in school psychology, and so using testing to determine anything is sort of something I know more about than the average bear. STAR scores are not indicative of learning anything. STAR scores are indicative of test-taking skills. So the analogy I would give you is that nobody thinks that their kid who's getting ready to go to college and gets the SAT score that isn't great, and then they send them to a test prep thing and they suddenly improve their SAT scores by 150 points, nobody thinks that student has suddenly gotten a fabulous education and suddenly is more educated than they were before they took the test prep class, right? They just know that they've learned how to take the test. And the problem with Miles's entire approach is that everything he's doing is counter to what is research-based and what is evidence-based, including removing libraries, taking away interdisciplinary planning, not having only scripted times that kids can respond, and having timers go off every 4 minutes. All of these things are the opposite of what teach kids the things that actually the Greater Houston Partnership has identified that students need to have to be hireable. They need time management skills.
Ruth, let me jump in here for a second. I want to ask you a quick question. If test scores aren't a good way to gauge success in school, how would you recommend, what would be your advice to the school district of how to monitor increases in learning and proficiency and the ability to move forward to the next grades or graduate well?
That's an excellent question. There are several simple things that you can look at, such as how many kids enroll in, successfully complete advanced coursework, what your attendance rates are, what your discipline rates are, what your graduation rates are. But also, there are lots of better ways to look at how kids have learned. There's something called graduation by portfolio and exhibition, where kids actually show what they've learned by saving work products over the years, and over an academic year, they have samples of things they've done. They have exhibits of like a project that they did with a group of other kids, and they have to show that they work together and that they learned those skills that you need in the workforce, right?
Okay, I'm going to pause you right there just so I can get Kylie's reaction. Kylie, your reaction to what Ruth was saying.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I genuinely agree with Ruth. There also has been legislators in the Texas legislature that have tried to put forward legislation like writing portfolios. That would be some sort of an example of what Ruth is talking about. And I think it's important to look at a holistic view of a child's learning rather than a single test date, rather than even a sample of 4 different test dates. That just measures if the student understands how to take the test, not how to apply what they're actually learning in the classroom.
And we have another caller on the line. And again, you can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. Crystal is on the line from Northeast Houston. Crystal, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question for Kylie?
Hi, yes, I'm in Northeast Houston. It's NES primarily area, and I'm wondering how students are getting engaged. Are there any internships? How do they sign up? How are you guys getting our students involved? And so I could, I guess, spread that awareness, because we definitely have issues in our areas and people that can't get to board meetings and things of that nature to express what's going on in our schools. So, Kylie, if you could enlighten us on how we can get involved, or how our students, or were there ways to get involved, or any internships or anything of that nature?
Okay, Crystal, thank you for that. Kylie.
Yes, so we do internships over the summer. However, during the school year, we engage students by having club meetings after school, close to the school, typically at a library, where we ask students how do they feel about their school? What are things that they want to see changed? What are things that they like? What are things that they want to keep? How does this apply to what we see in school board meetings? What is on the agenda at the next school board meeting that's discussing these issues that these students have? And then we talk about that. And students that never previously even knew that an agenda for a board meeting exists actually learn about that. And specifically on the Northeast side, you can contact me at kyliejmavs@gmail.com. If you are interested in getting involved as a student, or go to Houston CVPE and attend a meeting. But we are also going to be in the Kashmere area for high school as well.
Close this loop for me. So once you get that information, where does it go? Do you folks go into the board meetings? How do you enact then this information you gather?
Yeah, so we look through the board meeting agendas. I've looked through that with students before, and we pick out things that they have issues with. What is something that they care about? Is that on the board agenda? If that is, then we invite that student to speak. If it it means that I have to go out there and help them and get a parent permission slip to transport them, then that's what I will do.
You become a conduit for the students to go to school boards and voice their opinions. Okay, thank you.
Kylie Mavris is a student organizer with Community Voices for Public Education. Kylie, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And coming up, how to keep your kids' lunches healthy and nutritious. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
With federal funding for public media has been cut. In response, we're creating Houston Public Media's Resiliency Fund. Donations made toward the fund will directly counter the loss of the $2.2 million in federal funds that were cut annually and strengthen our station's foundation to provide our services into the future. Contributing to this fund is easy and quick and makes all the difference to our station. Help build the Resiliency Fund now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
On Bullseye, I usually handle introducing and promoting our guests, but, well...
Hey there, this is Paul Walter Hauser. Yes, the man with 3 names for each of his acclaims. Father/husband, wrestler, and movie star.
That's right, Paul Walter Hauser from I, Tonya, The Naked Gun, and The Fantastic Four. On Bullseye from MaximumFun.org and NPR.
You can hear Bullseye this Thursday night at 9.
On the next Fresh Air, Jeff Hiller. He's nominated for an Emmy for his performance in the HBO series Somebody Somewhere as Joel, the main character's best friend, who runs a secret nighttime cabaret at his church for his LGBTQ friends. Jeff Hiller originally felt called to be a pastor, but being gay was a pretty major obstacle. Join us.
It's on tonight at 8.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous and Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
As we enter the new school year, many parents will resume their daily responsibility of packing lunches for their kids. While every parent wants to make sure that their child brings a nutritious lunch to school, it can be difficult to know exactly what food to pack for them and which of the five food groups should be represented in their lunch. Additionally, some parents also deal with the struggle of figuring out what to pack for their picky eaters. To help us figure all this out and so much more, we welcome Lisa Freitnet, who is a registered dietitian at Baylor College of Medicine. Lisa, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today.
If folks would like to join the conversation, you can give us a call or text at 713-440-8870.
You know, Lisa, I've got to say, as a parent, that there's 3 words, and I just kind of cringe. What is for lunch, or 4 words? What is for dinner? What is for snack? Mommy, I don't want that. Yes. I want that. It is a parent. Nobody talks to you about that, about parenthood. You actually have to feed these children. Talk to us about some basics, easy go-tos for parents that are in the morning or in the evening making their child's lunch.
Yes, so the basic sandwich is always a good thing. You can always add whatever lunch meats. You're still getting carbohydrates in with the bread. Those are going to help fuel the kids' brains. Adding basics like carrot sticks, all the simple things would be a great option to add to the kids' lunches. Now, I heard you had mentioned the picky eater things, which we can get into, but many of the parents stress out about not having lunches packed the night before. So even picking one day of the week where you can pack 5 days of worth of lunches and then just kind of handing them out and going in the morning would be great. So sandwiches are a great option for that too.
You mentioned lunch meats, and of course I suddenly go to the sodium, and we often talk about how unhealthy those are. Are they as unhealthy as we think? Are there wiser choices we can make when making those sandwiches?
You know, that's a great question. In the amounts that we're giving them, it's not unhealthy. I think if we're providing a lot of variety with the kids at home, so outside, what are they providing for dinner and breakfast? The lunch meats are going to be a great protein option. They have a lot of vitamins and minerals for the kiddos. So not as bad as we think they are. They're a great protein option.
That's a great point. You know, to Ernie's point, I'm a millennial. I grew up on fruit roll-ups, high C, a bag of Lay's potato chips, and a tuna sandwich. sandwich. And now, as a mom, I look at that and I think, well, tuna, there's high in mercury. Well, Lay's, they're fried. They're unhealthy. High C, there's sugar and red dyes and fruit roll-ups. Well, forget it. How much has nutrition changed when we're looking at the pyramid? Because from what I understand, the nutrition pyramid has changed.
Yes, it's actually based on a My Plate method. So more of a balance. Not really having restricted foods, but making sure we're still focusing on the primary nutrients of protein, fats, carbs, fruits, and vegetables, but still enjoying those fun foods, like you said, the fruit roll-ups. So I don't think limiting those foods or saying the kids can't have them at all, I think that can actually create a more complex relationship with their relationships with food. However, I think incorporating some fun foods in their lunch boxes in addition to the nutritional foods can be a really positive moment in their day and just something that they look forward to.
You make a great point there, because if it isn't appealing to eat, they're either throwing it away or trading it with someone else. So it doesn't matter if your intention is give them the world's most healthy meal. If they're not going to eat it, they're not going to eat it. So you've got to make it appealing to their palate too, which goes back to the intro about the picky eaters. So what do you do when you have that picky eater and you want to make sure they're getting their nutrition, but you don't know what happens when they walk out the door with that lunch?
Yes, exactly. That's a great point. So with picky eating, I actually recommend parents introduce those foods at home in all different ways. So if it's vegetables, we can kind of hide them in certain foods. Even getting the kids involved in making the meals actually entices them to want to try the foods more. So I encourage parents to have the kids help them make their lunches, putting the foods in fun shapes. So you can kind of cut sandwiches out into a star shape or hearts. And just introducing the foods in different ways. You know, if we see a new food and we see it for the first time, we're not going to love it. But after a while, we might transition to knowing what the taste is going to be like and not being so afraid of it.
I was one of those kids that always got the hot lunch. I got it every day. I got the hot lunch at school. For the parents that are the ones that send their kids and they get the lunch at school, what are schools doing to make sure they're matching the same concern? Do you think that they're hitting that they're making sure they're giving nutrition? I mean, I come from a time of when they said ketchup was a vegetable. So wondering, where are we today with the nutrition guidelines that schools have for the lunches they're putting out?
That's a great point. I haven't read their guidelines recently, but I do have some dietitian friends in the school departments, and they're working hard on making sure that we're meeting those nutritional meal needs. So for instance, making sure we're adding more fruits, vegetables, lower fat options, or I guess healthier fat options. And making sure they're more balanced and nutritious. And they're also focusing more on the breakfast piece too. They want to make sure that kids are getting all of those nutrients in throughout the day. But yes, dietitians have been working really hard on the school funding and making sure that they're getting all those nutrients met with those requirements.
And you mentioned fun foods. When you think of a fun food, I'd love to get some examples. And then the other thing is, would it fall under dessert?
Great question. So fun foods can be different, like chips or yes, it can be desserts and candies, but I would say limiting some of those fun foods so that we can still focus on providing the child with the protein and the carbs and the fats, but adding in those fruit roll-ups or a brownie or a cookie in fun shapes is okay. If it's not the primary food intake for the child's body is going to know what to do with it. It's going to digest it, and the child's still going to enjoy that food
The other
item.
thing that I'm sorry.
But yes, go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing is convenience. I know that I will much more likely eat potato chips than take carrots out and have to clean them and cut them and all that. And so I think it's like, as long as it's user friendly, you have a better chance of getting healthier food into your kids.
Yes. And so that's where I recommend planning out maybe one day a week where the family maybe gets together, plans out all the lunches for the 5 days. And so that way you do have the time to take those, to wash the vegetables, to wash the fruit. And even local grocery stores like H-E-B have gone extra steps to have pre-prepared food items like the little bagged carrots or the little fruit cups. Different things like that.
And what if a parent, we mentioned picky eaters, but what if a parent is concerned? Lisa, where can somebody go if they're saying, my child's really, really, really picky and I'm worried?
Yeah, that's a great question. I recommend that they see the pediatrician and also a registered dietitian. They can really take a look at what the child's intake is like throughout the day. The pediatrician can look at the medical things like labs, seeing what the child's health is like, seeing if they're following the growth charts, and then the dietitian can work with parents on how to make sure the kid's getting the food throughout the day and making sure they're not lacking any nutrition.
Excellent. Lisa Freutnit is a registered dietitian at Baylor College of Medicine. Lisa, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thanks for having me.
And that brings us to the end of our show.
You know, as we wrap the show, I want to read a real quick comment we got on
Yes.
YouTube from my British computer guy. That's your guy usually. Going back to the earlier conversation, I love that this show has both Democrats and Republican voices. Even if I disagree sometimes, hearing both sides matters. Respectfully. So
And
thank you
again,
for that comment.
Thank you for that comment. Thank you for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with more conversations. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters.
Support comes from Visit Galveston, an island-style retreat where visitors can experience historic architecture, museums, boutique shops, and more at this family seaside escape. More at Visit